Hello and welcome to the dungeons. Dayman here. Today we're going to be talking about how to make the most out of your mythical loadout. Today's subject is the Longsword. Alright, now the Longsword is a committed playstyle, and I have found that its one and done charged attack can be rather tricky to line up on your enemies. So, how do we make the most out of this loadout? And with the right loadout, even this finicky weapon becomes an absolute unit. Here in our first-person view, you can see my initial impressions with how to make the most out of this loadout. And that's going to be the slowing and poison hammer, as well as an ice and poison dagger. If you have double poison daggers, who am I to stop you? But the reason why I suggest these specific elemental perks as well as weapon perks is the fact that they allow me to slow enemies down, keel them over in place, or freeze them in their tracks. And all three of those options are going to allow me to line up those powerful spires with those enemies, and making it less finicky to get them lined up. Now, with those initial impressions with our side weapons, I wanted to discuss the fact that we will be throwing these weapons so that we can keep enemies at bay. You can, of course, use them in melee in a fray, but if you're in melee, we know what we're holding in our hands, don't we? So, we will discuss what other mythical weapons are good to pair with your longsword after we look at our exos. Looking here at our exosuit, I like to run stillness, might, haste, and armor. Stillness, though, is not necessarily considered the most useful healing perk, especially for a melee build. Your build is allowing you to take advantage of standing still a lot more and lining up those shots, allowing us also to use our chest armor perk to take allow us to take more hits and fewer damage. Now, there is some nuance in our legs perk, and that nuance also exists here because you can, of course, go vitality, but I'm a tank, baby. I don't want nothing more than armor. So, with haste, that allows you to move in and out of the fray and get into those lined up shots very easily. But if you've been here on the channel, you know that when I'm using my longsword, there's one perk I find that gets overshadowed, and that is leap, allowing you to strike and follow up and move in and around that fray more controlled, and then get those fast-paced leaps and jumps when you need them. Now, I would not for this suggest the Juggernaut perk, but if you are one who's gotten used to having the protection on your back, you can pair a hammer with a shield, or you can get some utility out of it. And there is a single instance by which I would recommend the Juggernaut perk with the longsword, despite them being somewhat conflicting, and we'll get into that now. I'll have this equipped just for the purposes of our next portion. What mythical weapons pair well with our long boy? I will show you now. The reason why I recommended the shield was because its knockdown and knockback and ability to strike at very far distances with its thrown ability, knocking enemies to the floor, will give you another tool for not just creating space, but knocking enemies down. When enemies are standing up, they become very easy targets for your spires. Other mythical weapons that have great pairings with the longsword. Now, this is one that has been overshadowed, but actually has an amazing pairing with the longsword, and that is the Mythical Axe. The Mythical Axe, in its charge period, creates a buzzsaw effect when it strikes into a target spinning in space, and it staggers an enemy in their spot, allowing you to always be able to hit that powerful Spire-charged attack. Other great pairings are the Mythical Hammer. What am I going to do? Suggest a Mythical Hammer with everything? Yes, because it's the best, and if you don't got it, you're cheating yourself. Knocking enemies to the floor at whatever range you would like, and keeping space will allow you to get huge utility out of your mythical weapon. So this is one of the few mythical weapons, actually, being the Longsword, that makes great utility out of a full mythical loadout. If you don't have a full mythical loadout, don't worry. Any one of those weapons, or weapons of the similar principles, such as an explosion axe, can also do you quite well. With those things in mind, I hope you've learned something and have disinfected that face mask and washed that spooky face, baby. Dayman out. Peace.